Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a question that seems super simple on the surface, but is actually deeply complex. What is government? We talk about it literally every single day, right? It impacts almost everything we do, yet trying to pin down a clear definition, that's a real challenge. So, settle in, because we're going to take a structured, multi-layered look at what this ultimate system actually is, breaking down the source material to give you a crystal clear understanding.
Think about it for just a second. What exactly is government? When you hear that word, what instantly pops into your head? For a lot of us, we get this immediate mental picture of, say, a grand parliament building in New Delhi, or maybe your local state legislature, or maybe you picture specific people, a president standing at a podium, a prime minister, or a cabinet of ministers. The really fascinating paradox here is that government is absolutely ingrained in our culture. It's a massive part of our daily lives. And yet, if you were to stop an average person on the street and ask them to just define the word, most of us would actually struggle to come up with a solid answer.
Instead of a clear-cut definition, our brains usually just jump straight to these heavy, loaded words: power, control, rule, or simply politics. And hey, it's completely natural to associate government with those concepts, but relying only on those associations leaves us with a pretty blurry picture. Because, a layman is going to define it differently than a politician or a scholar. What we actually need is a concrete framework. Defining government is the absolute necessary starting point for any real study of how our societies function. So, to build that clear picture, we're going to look at this concept through three distinct lenses.
Let's start with lens number one, the structural view. This is all about understanding the foundation. Starting with everyday language, let's look at the baseline established by the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, which interestingly enough offers not just one, but three distinct definitions. First up, it defines government as the actual group of people who control and make decisions for a country or state. Second, it shifts gears to define it as a particular system used for controlling a country. And then third, it gets even more abstract, defining it as the actual process or manner of controlling that state. Did you notice that fascinating shift? We literally move from a highly tangible group of human beings to an institutional system and finally to an abstract, ongoing process. Now, the really fascinating unified theme running through all three of those dictionary definitions is a pretty heavy word: control. But we have to look at what control actually means in this specific context. Whether a government is a group of people, a system, or a process, the entire purpose of that control is to facilitate a smooth functioning state. It exists to meet the basic requirements of the people living there. It's not just control for the sake of holding power, It's control as an absolute operational necessity just to keep things running. Moving right along to lens number two, the functional view. This is how government actually moves society forward.
So how does this structure actually move a society forward in the real world? For this, we turn to the insights of political scientist Harold Dembrow. According to Dembrow, the primary job of any government, no exceptions, is making public policy for an entire society. And I absolutely love the visual he uses here. He calls government the steering mechanism for a given society. Just think about that metaphor for a second. A society is essentially this massive, complex vehicle packed with millions of people. Left completely to its own devices, it would probably drift aimlessly or even crash, especially when you consider that a society is basically a vehicle with millions of backseat drivers. The government acts as the steering wheel, forming the policies that keep that specific society heading safely in the right direction.
In everyday practice, this steering mechanism operates in two very distinct steps. First, whatever government is currently in the picture absolutely must have a vision or an objective. Basically, they have to know exactly where the vehicle is supposed to go. Second, once they actually know that destination, they use their authority to form public policy. And this policy is the engine that actually moves the entire society together to achieve that objective. It's a massive, unified coordination effort, really taking a society from where it currently stands to where it aspires to be. Okay, that brings us to our final perspective, lens number three, the regulatory view, maintaining the balance. Looking at the strict legal definition, Black's Law Dictionary gives us a very specific, relationship-focused view. It states that government regulates relationships in two distinct arenas. On one hand, we have the internal relationships among the members of the society itself. On the other hand, we have the external relationships between that society and outsiders. Government essentially creates the space, the platform, if you will, where these specific relationships happen and then steps in as the ultimate authority to regulate them effectively.
Listen, the crucial point here is that this authority isn't just about making rules for the fun of it. According to the legal definition, the government must have the authority to make decisions so that a society can actually meet its goals, while simultaneously maintaining law and order. If a society has any objective it wants to achieve, the direction for that mission absolutely must come from the government. You simply cannot have goal-oriented progress without the firm foundation of law and order preventing complete chaos from taking over.
So what does this all mean? Let's look at the ultimate synthesis and bring all these lenses together.
We've covered a lot of ground today across the structural, functional, and regulatory lenses. But when we strip away all the complexity and really summarize our sources, a beautifully unified picture emerges. Because whether we're talking about an institutional system in operation, a specific group of people currently in charge, or an abstract process of control, the end goal is exactly the same. Government is the authority that sets the rules, it helps members relate to one another, and, most importantly, it offers the framework to keep society running smoothly, securely, and peacefully. At the end of the day, all of this complex machinery exists for one reason: the overarching welfare of the society.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a quick question to ponder. Based on everything we've broken down today, which definition of government do you feel like you interact with the most in your daily life? Are you really feeling the impact of the steering mechanism's public policy? Are you navigating the rules that regulate relationships? Or are you maybe just noticing the smooth functioning of society as you go about your day? Take a moment to reflect on how these concepts actually show up in your own life. Thanks so much for diving deep into this topic with me, and keep exploring.